All right, let's get into it, shall we? Devindra Hardawar, what is your number 10 film of 2024?
Yeah, let's get started. My number 10 film is Furiosa, a Mad Max saga.
Nice
I think George
choice,
Miller.
Devindra.
Yeah, I think George Miller is a freaking genius. I'm so happy he had a chance to like revisit the Mad Max world and also give us a taste of what made Fury Road so incredible. And this movie, like, I both love it. Also, one of the best theater experiences because I got to see with Dave in Seattle and a whole group of people. But also one of the most disappointing ones when it comes to audiences because people just freaking rejected this movie almost entirely. And I think that's kind of heartbreaking. We likely will not see any other, we definitely won't see any other Mad Max movies from George Miller. Probably not any ever again. Who knows? But I love this movie. I think it's a fantastic film and a great prequel to Fury Road. Anya Taylor-Joy is fantastic. Chris Hemsworth is so good. I'm so glad we got this movie this year.
Yeah. Minor spoiler for my list. This is not on my top 10.
Wow.
Not on
Again,
mine either.
you disappoint me too.
Oh, wow.
It's
okay.
It very nearly could have. It very nearly could have been.
It was very near. It was very close. It was very close. But wow. So this is our opportunity to talk about it then, Jeff. Right? Like, I actually think this is a great film. I
do too.
What I think got people by surprise a little bit is how different it is than Mad Max Fury Road. Right? Mad Max Fury Road is just 2 hours of pure adrenaline. Almost in real time, a lot of it, right? There's some time jumps, but like it covers a 24-hour time period, and much of it is in real time. And Furiosa Mad Max Saga had a much more epic scope. We're going to tell the story of this person's life and all the things they went through and all the huge events that shaped them into who they became in Mad Max Fury Road. And for the most part, the answers to the questions we didn't even ask were interesting. You know, there are interesting portions of backstory that we got about the character of Furiosa. But
it also still had adrenaline, pulse-pounding action,
stuff we'd never seen
visuals.
Before. Yeah.
Just, I mean, that sequence, the sequence of getting onto the truck, is one of the greatest action sequences of the year, bar none. It's still delivered what you want out of a Mad Max movie, but also had more nuance, more sort of storytelling, more characters. Very. I mean, for a long time, it was on my top 10, and very nearly, easily could have been. It's one of those movies where it's like, man, how do I fit this in? I'm glad Devindra did.
I am still baffled as to why this movie did not do better at the box office. The first film, Mad Max Fury Road, made $154 million domestically. Furiosa made only $67 million domestically. And I would think that, and by the way, Mad Max, a movie that, in my opinion, has grown in people's estimation over time. So you think like when a movie becomes more popular after its initial theatrical run, like that's the desire for more of that story is going to be pent up. People just did not show up to the box office.
It did not have a very good popcorn bucket. That's true.
That's true. That would have swung it. That would have swung it. I think you're right.
Well, what I saw from talking to people was a rejection both from like mainstream folks who were just like, I didn't really, Mad Fury Road was fine. I don't need to see another one. But also from the people who like Fury Road and was like, I don't need a prequel to that. Which I guess philosophically I understand, but also the master's giving you new stuff. Like at least give it a shot.
The biggest tragedy of this movie is that he wants to make another one and he will never be able to. That's a crime.
Yep. The thing I can't stop thinking about is like if I was a billionaire, I would give George Miller the money to make his Mad Max saga in the way that he wanted to. I don't understand why we don't have more benevolent billionaires bankrolling these people. Instead, they buy social media sites that complain about how no one likes them, and I just don't get it. Get it. All right.
It's wild, but a reminder that Fury Road is an impossible movie. The fact that even got made, is remarkable. So we need more of those swings. Yeah,
great choice for your number 10, Devindra. Furiosa, a Mad Max saga, and since it's not in Jeff and my top 10, this is the opportunity we'll have to talk about it. All right, Jeff Kanata, your number 10 film of 2024.
Well, number 10 is typically where I like to put something a little unexpected. Yes.
Yes.
So my number 10 movie of 2024 is Orion and the Dark.
Wow.
Okay.
What if Charlie Kaufman wrote an animated kids movie? I know that sounds impossible, but imagine it. It would probably take the tropes you see all the time in animated kids movies, like anthropomorphized concepts like insomnia or quiet, the idea of learning a lesson, even generational storytelling. It would take all those things and turn them on their head to make you think about them in ways you never have. It would use those things to comment on the medium itself. And it would undoubtedly be wrapped in melancholy and self-analysis, in anxiety about the world and our place in it, but filled with introspection and beauty. Now, what if I told you that movie actually exists and it's called Orion and the Dark and it's on Netflix and literally no one is talking about it? Well, I'm talking about it. It's my number 10 movie of 2024. I wept like a baby by the end of this movie. It is utterly gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's a movie that is made, I think, more for adults than kids, as you might expect, but works for kids. Orion in the Dark. See it if you haven't.
Beautifully said, Jeff. And I can already tell these are going to be really diverse lists. That was Jeff's number 10, Orion and the Dark, streaming right now on Netflix. My number 10 film of 2024 is Anora. So
nice.
Anora is Sean Baker's story about a stripper who falls in love with an oligarch's kid. It is hilarious, but it's also about how impossible it is for people to move beyond their current class situation and how capitalism traps us all. Mikey Madsen is incredible, but as with all Sean Baker films, it's the ensemble for this movie that really sells it. There's a bunch of relative unknown actors putting in authentic performances, but also characters that are in the background that come into the foreground in ways that are unexpected and profound. I had a blast with this movie, and yeah, there was really debating like this or some of the other things on my honorable mentions and shifting this around my top 10, but I ultimately feel good to include it here as my number 10, Sean Baker's Anora, out on video on demand right now.
Yeah.
So,
good choice. I know this is a
excellent
number one movie for a lot of people. So,
yeah. I will say, by the way, that people have been talking about like best picture for this one. I don't think this one did fine at the box office. It's going to be like a good, profitable movie for Sean Baker, I'm sure, but it wasn't like a massive mainstream success. I think people were thinking that this would break out in a big way. It's made $14 million domestically at the box office, and so I'm surprised at how I saw a sold out early preview screen. People had to buy tickets for this. I saw it was sold out, completely packed, and I thought, oh, this is going to have some mainstream appeal. And I think it's doing fine. It's not a failure, but it's just it hasn't broken out in a big way, and that has surprised me a little bit. Anyway, Anora, it's my number 10 film of 2024. All right, Devindra Hardawar, your number 9 film of 2024.
My number 9 film is Love Lies Bleeding. I thought this was a fantastic crime thriller from Rose Glass. Really stylish, just tremendously like really interesting. It felt like a classic Coen Brothers, type of story, except with a very different vibe and with a lot of cool style. And I think tremendous performances by Kristen Stewart and Katie O'Brien and Ed Harris as well. I can't stop thinking about some of the images from this movie. Like, it is energetic, it is sexy, it is just so cool, and sometimes you just need a good crime thriller. I think this was one of the best ones we got this year.
Wow, yeah, this is definitely a great choice, Devindra, and I think Katie O'Brien just was so tremendous in this movie. Showed us something that we just generally don't see. We just generally don't see that body type on screen, and the way she handles herself is incredible in this film. Great choice for your number 9 film of the year.
One of those movies that has stayed in my psyche since seeing it.
Absolutely. Jeff Kanata, your number 9 film of 2024.
All right, I went back and forth a lot about whether to include this movie in my top 10 list.
Yeah.
And you know what? A lot of people are going to mock this choice. There's a lot of maybe worthier movies. But you know what? This is my top 10.
Yeah.
I do what I want.
Oh, man. Here comes Borderlands.
This is an act of defiance. Okay. My number 9 movie of 2024 is Fall Guy.
Oh
yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, Jeff.
Yeah, Jeff.
I'll tell you why soon.
Dude, I had such a wonderful time watching this movie. It became an unforgettable part of my movie-going experience in 2024. This isn't usually the kind of movie that I'd put in my top 10, but I found it so fun and inventive, so full of memorable moments, delightful characters, fun action, and humor. I think it is terrible that this movie didn't do better at the box office. It felt like it had something for everybody. A total crowd pleaser, it seemed to me. I don't know. I talked to some normies that I hang out with, some non-cinephiles that went to see this and didn't like it. And I just don't understand what movie they saw. I don't understand what there is not to like about this movie. It's just so delightful. It has inventive things. So as an act of defiance, I put this in my top 10. Fall Guy.
I will talk more about this soon, Jeff. But yeah, great A blockbuster, great romance, like great action. Like this is what I go to the movies for.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. The title is The Fall Guy, by the way. And I agree that this was actually well reviewed, and it has strong rating on Rotten Tomatoes and the popcorn meter. So I think like audiences who saw it ended up liking it. But it was a very harrowing year for the box office, guys, because I remember when this movie came out, and I think it was May or early June timeframe, did not do well. Furiosa came out, that tanked as well, and people were like, "Oh, is it over?
What is happening?
Is this the collapse of the box office?" And then, of course, Deadpool and Wolverine came out and
saved us all,
massive success, right? And saved us all. And there was other big successes in the second half of the year as well. So, but yeah, that said, I had a great time with this movie. Jeff, I think it is a solid choice for number 9. I don't, in my opinion, there is no defiance necessary because I think a lot of people like this movie. So, great choice.
It's also on other top 10 lists from what I've seen. So, yeah.
I really hope that there's somebody out there that hears this and hasn't seen this movie and gives it a shot.
Yeah.
Because it's so fun. It's so fun.
Well, speaking of acts of defiance, Jeff Kanata, my number 9 choice is an act of defiance against Jeff Kanata. My number 9 film of 2024 is Hundreds of Beavers.
Wow.
Hundreds of Beavers was probably my favorite theatrical film going experience this year. Just had a blast sitting in a full theater at the SIF Egyptian in Capitol Hill, watching this movie unfold. So this movie starts with a bold idea, namely a trapper is trying to make way for himself in the American frontier and battle the elements, which includes a bunch of beavers represented by guys dressed in very comically looking beaver suits. And this movie then continues that premise for so long that the commitment to the bit becomes part of the bit, right? And what's great about Hundreds of Beavers is it just reminds you what is possible for someone with a creative idea and an Adobe Creative Cloud subscription can create, right? Like they can make something that is really, really funny, transportive, outlandish. And I think the affection that this movie has for what ridiculous thing it's trying to pull off is very infectious.
Classic cartoons too.
Yes,
like it's
classic cartoons, Looney Tunes, that kind of stuff. If you like that stuff and want to see that, what a live action version of that would look like, then you should check out Hundreds of Beavers, which is available right now via streaming. So
make no mistake, I admire this movie.
Yes,
I really admire the amount of work and chutzpah it took to make it. I mean, it's not like anything else other than classic 1940s cartoons. But the idea that somebody would put in the amount of pure labor it took to put this on the screen is remarkable. And I wish I loved this as much as you did. I wish I had the experience of watching this with a crowd. Maybe that would have swayed me. I watched it alone in my house, and I admired it a lot. And I think it is really worth checking out. I just do think it lasted too long, and it became a little bit of a slog for me by the middle toward the end. And I kind of felt like I got it, and it keeps one-upping itself, but I just felt, for me, it wasn't a complete home run. But by no means was this a movie I disliked. It's just not something that worked on the whole. But it's an amazing idea and amazing execution.
Well, that's my number 9. It's Hundreds of Beavers. Let's get to our number 8 choices. Devindra, your number 8 film of 2024.
My number 8 choice is The Fall Guy.
Hey!
That's why I'm right there with you, Jeff. Although in retrospect, like I should have like stared harder at this list, because I think I would probably flip this in Furiosa if I took another look at this list. But I love The Fall Guy. I think this is a classic action movie that is also trying to like make a statement about how movies are made and how undervalued stunt performers are in Hollywood, and has some incredible stunts, has some of the best action of the year. I think David Leitch is one of my favorite action directors, even though he keeps getting into these like not so great movies like Bullet Train. Like I liked aspects of it. I did not like really much of Hobbs and Shaw, not Family, that whole thing. I'm just sitting here waiting for like, I hope this guy gets to do like a sequel to Atomic Blonde at some point, but I like him as an action director, and I thought this movie was fantastic. It is one of those like movies where if we just had like movies on cable, and you would like surf channels and just like end up on a movie, like this feels like one of those things you would just sit down and watch on a Saturday afternoon whenever it popped on. I love this movie. Cannot wait to rewatch it.
What a year for Aaron Taylor Johnson.
Yeah.
Fall Guy, Kraven the Hunter, Nosferatu. I mean, that's I gotta give you a high five for 2024, Aaron.
He's also going to be in 28 Years Later.
Yeah, well, that's not this year. But
I think next year as well. But yeah, it's going to be it's his time right now. Between him and Nicholas Hoult, we're just living in there, and they were together in Nosferatu.
They were together. Yeah.
All right, Jeff Kanata, your number 8 film of 2024.
My number 8 film of 2024 is Blink Twice.
Oh, great choice. Great choice.
Take the ultimate wish fulfillment, turn it into a nightmare. Yeah, it's another story about a tech billionaire's fantasy island gone mad, but this one filmed with such verve and creativity. It's a rip-roaring, what would you do in that situation mystery with great characters and style. And it's so fun, even if it yada, yada, yada's some of its logic. I don't even care.
Yeah.
I had a blast with this one. It's an amazing debut.
Yeah. Zoe Kravitz, first
Zoe
film.
Kravitz, just amazing.
Yeah.
And it deserves to be on the list. Blink Twice, my number 8 film of 2024.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this one. I really enjoyed this one as well, Jeff. Great choice for your top 10. It wasn't really in consideration for my top 10, but I have very fond memories of watching this movie, and it is an incredible debut. So,
if we had a category for like biggest surprise of the year, I think this is one of the biggest surprises.
Definitely. This would definitely be on there. Or strongest debut, best debut. This would definitely be on there. All right, my number 8 film of 2024 was Ghostlight.
Ooh.
So Ghostlight, there were 2 great movies about the transformative power of Shakespeare this year, Ghostlight and Sing Sing. And unfortunately, I felt like I could only choose one of them for my top 10. I didn't want to put both of them in there just because they're thematically so similar. And Ghostlight is the one. It was very close, though. I was kind of like switching back and forth, and it was very close. And maybe on a different day, it would have been Sing Sing. But Ghostlight tells the story of a construction worker who finds himself involved with a local theater group and performing Shakespeare as a way of exercising his demons. The movie is about how art can deliver emotional catharsis and ultimately help us all overcome trauma in our lives. It's beautiful, and most importantly, it recontextualizes one of Shakespeare's great plays in a way that makes it accessible and relevant. That's ultimately what swung it for me, is I think Ghostlight is more about Shakespeare, and Sing Sing is kind of more about the characters. And it depends on what your preference is. I'm not saying one's better than the other. For me, I am just a huge fan of whenever someone can take Shakespeare's work from hundreds of years ago and make the words sing and make them feel like you understand them, and like this is how people talk. And the way that Ghostlight renders the actual Shakespeare itself, I thought was really, really impressive. And yeah, this was literally one of the first movies I saw in 2024. I was at the world premiere at Sundance, and it stayed with me all this time. I still have a positive opinion of it. And when I look back on this year, this is one of those ones that I want to keep with me, that I want to remember. So the movie's Ghostlight. It's my number 8 film of 2024.
It's so good. Yeah.
Wow, we're 9 movies in, only 1 repeat so far.
Wow,
I think, right? So, which is The Fall Guy. Let's get to our number 7.
We're gonna change that. Yeah.
Devindra Harder, your number 7 film of 2024.
My number 7 film is Anora.
Nice.
This is, one of the wildest rides of the year. Like I've been a Sean Baker fan. Didn't like Red Rocket as much as his others, but I think like this is very much within his wheelhouse of looking at a subculture of especially sex workers and portraying them as real people with real lives and real wants and needs. And I think this is like a fascinating film. It's a really fun film, and then it goes places that we didn't expect it. I didn't expect it to go where it does in its second half, and it ends in a way that I'm still thinking about to this day. I think this is a fantastic film, and Mikey Madison clearly is going to be up to some incredible things moving ahead. But yeah, Nora, what a ride. Just one of the wildest rides we've had this year.
Agreed. Great film. Jeff Kanata, your number 7 film of 2024?
My number 7 film of 2024 is Conclave. Wonderful acting, a sharp, tightly written script, some delicious twists and turns. This is what I love about movies. And it turns a subject I usually find dreadfully dull into one of the most tense talking heads movies of the year. Plus, as we said at the beginning of the show, it speaks to our time in a very relevant way. It speaks to this year, this election year that we're in.
Right. Because a big part of Conclave was the idea of harm reduction, right? Like maybe you vote for the person that you're not the biggest fan of.
That's right.
And then we can see how efficacious that was in both real life and the movie.
You may not love the candidate.
Yep.
But it's better than the alternative.
Yep.
Also, it contains a twist that challenges the audience.
Yes.
In a way that I absolutely loved. I talked on our review, I think it was on After Dark actually, but on our review of Conclave about how I saw this in a room full of elderly people who all were talking as they left the theater, and I was overhearing their conversations. And man, what a cool thing for a movie to do.
Yeah.
To challenge an audience that is coming to this. They know this is the target audience of this movie is people that may not be comfortable with some of the things that it gets to.
Yeah.
And I admire a movie that has the courage to do that. And I think Conclave is just awesome.
Great film, Jeff. Again, this was almost in my top 10 as well. It was in my honorable mentions, and one of my favorite movies of the year for sure. So love that you chose Conclave for your number 7. I'm loving your guys' list, guys. I'm loving your guys' list so far. I just want to
This is one of those movies we don't really see much more these days too. So like I love it just for that reason too.
Yeah. This feels like it would have been a prestige TV show.
Yes.
But it actually got to be a movie this time.
Yeah.
10 years ago, it would have been a prestige TV show. In the 90s, probably would have been close to this, but it wouldn't feel as fresh.
Yeah, 100%. It would have been a movie, and then it would not have been a movie. Yeah. And now it's a movie again.
Now it's a movie again. Yeah, exactly. All right. This is going to be one of my most controversial picks, I think.
I'm ready.
Not just with you guys. I think there's a lot of people. This is one of those picks that people will look at this on Dave Chen's list and it will serve to discredit him moving forward. And I'm okay with that because, like Jeff,
you never had any credit in the first place.
That's right.
We listen and we do not judge. Yeah.
My number 7 choice for 2024 is It's What's Inside.
Oh, this almost made my list, Dave.
Really?
This almost made my list.
Wow.
What? Oh, because you were not super positive on it during the review. So
I struggle with it. But this is a movie that I've thought about. And I just think that I want to let you say what you want to say. But like it.
Yeah. Let's hear it.
Just the audacity of this movie and the panache with which it is pulled off.
Yes.
Dude, I have versions of my list with this on it for sure.
That warms my heart to hear, Jeff.
Yeah.
That warms our heart to hear. Devindra, how about you? No, I'm just joking. I don't think it is.
I think it's perfectly fine. It is sacrilege to have it on your top 10 list, but totally fine.
Okay, I am going to give away the premise of It's What's Inside. So if you don't want to hear the premise, which is a big surprise for a lot of people, skip forward by 30, 60 seconds. But It's What's Inside is about a group of friends who get together for a wedding party. And an old friend shows up with a device that you realize allows them to switch bodies. and hijinks ensue. I think beyond this movie being a blast, this is one that really feels of its time. What I mean by that is, of all the movies that we're going to talk in any of our top 10s, I think this is the one that's going to be like, oh, this one came out at this particular point in time because of the style, right? Because of there's all this like use of color and split screen and like ultra wide angle and like all these other wild visual storytelling techniques that this movie employs, often to useful effect, because it's trying to make clear to you, oh, this person's in this person's body and this person's this, all this other stuff. It's very, very difficult what this movie is trying to achieve. And I think it succeeds. It nails it. But yeah, in addition to all that stuff, in addition to using interesting visual techniques and editing to convey a really strong high concept premise, it's one of those movies where I felt like I was watching a bold, creative new voice emerge.
Yeah.
And that's writer-director Greg Jardin, who I suspect will appear on this top 10 list again at some point in the future. So it's What's Inside. Again, one of the first movies I saw this year, has stayed with me this whole time. I rewatched it again for our conversation. Still a blast.
Yeah.
Strongly would recommend you check it out. It's on Netflix right now. It's What's Inside.
Such a cool idea, and such a cool, I mean, yes, I had major criticisms of this movie but one of those movies was like, this is somebody taking a big swing.
Yeah.
And I love that.
And a very difficult, like high order of difficulty for not only the director, but also all the actors.
Yeah. And I think some of them don't come out looking too good as a result, in my opinion.
Yeah.
But what they're asked to do is not easy.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
yeah. I agree. All right. It's What's Inside, my number 7 choice of 2024.
I love it. Love that pick, Dave.
Devindra Hardawar, what's your number 6 movie of 2024?
Yeah, things are good to get a little serious now. My number 6 pick is All We Imagine as Light. I talked about this movie a couple months ago, I think, or maybe weeks ago. This is an Indian film. It's set in Mumbai, centered around 3 women in very different roles. I believe one is a nurse, 2 nurses, and one is a food worker. But it's really about their lives and how they are trying and struggling to survive in modern day Mumbai. One is dealing with a husband who's absent. One has a Muslim boyfriend in a country where anti-Muslim hatred is becoming a bigger thing. And one is an older widow who just is trying to like have some sense of life and identity without her husband, who basically owned all her property. So this is one of those quiet movies, but it's about real people, and it's one of those stories I just don't feel like we see enough, especially about places like India. This is directed by Payal Kapadia. I thought this was a beautiful movie. It reminded me of some of my favorites, like Itu Mama Tambien. Beautiful film, really shows the life of like how these women survive in a city too, but also gets a little surreal at times, and just truly beautiful towards the end. So I hope more people see this thing. It did not end up becoming India's Oscar submission, and I think that's a shame because it's fantastic. And that's All We Imagine as Light.
I did watch this movie at your recommendation, Devindra. It did not make my top 10, but it's obviously one of the most critically acclaimed films of the year. And it just had a theatrical run. It'll be on video on demand soon. Hopefully that'll be a way for people to discover it.
Yeah, I hope more people see it. Like there are a lot of Quran vibes in this, and I really appreciate that.
All We Imagine as Light, it's Devindra's number 6 choice for 2024. Jeff Kanata, your number 6 choice for 2024.
My number 6 movie for 2024 is Last Stop in Yuma County.
Whoa! Whoa!
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Because I recommended this one to you,
You
right?
did.
Yeah.
You did. And you were spot on. This is my catnip. I love a tale that spirals out of control, where a series of unfortunate events put ordinary people in extraordinary circumstances. And this movie does just that, channeling the best of Tarantino and the Coen brothers with something so clever and so simple. It works. And it continues my streak of putting movies with Jim Cummings in my top 10.
Yes.
That dude.
A great Jim Cummings performance in this one.
He's awesome. I love his movies. I love his performances. And I love Last Stop in Yuma County. What a fun movie. This is like the classic movies that I loved in the 90s. You know, it feels like a throwback to those. It's grisly in fun ways. It's, You're constantly changing your allegiances and your alliances. It does unexpected things. It's so fun.
I had a blast with this movie. It warms my heart to hear you put this in your top 10, Jeff, because I saw it and I was thinking to myself, this is a movie that Jeff's going to enjoy. And you did. You did.
Yes.
So I would also strongly recommend this film. It's a blast. And it's one of those one location things, right, where it's a director taking very limited resources and making something really interesting out of it. So strongly recommend. Last stop in Yuma County. My number 6 film of 2024. Skywalker's A Love Story.
Wow.
Huh. Okay.
So, have any of you seen this movie by any chance?
I've heard of it.
I feel like it would give me the heebie-jeebies too much to watch it.
Okay, so this movie is another movie that I saw at Sundance that is currently on Netflix. That happened to a lot, like the best quote, or not the best, but like some of the most notable films from this year's Sundance were acquired by Netflix and then just released on Netflix without much of a marketing campaign. This is one of them.
It's a great strategy,
along
just to throw movies into the ether. Yeah,
along with It's What's Inside. But Skywalker's tells the story of 2 daredevil acrobats who pull off incredible stunts at the tops of tall buildings and objects. What impresses me most about this film is it is structured like a heist movie, right? And I think that's inherently difficult to do with a documentary. Like, if you're making a heist film, to gather all the footage you need for the heist film. But if you're shooting a documentary, you don't necessarily have access to all that footage, or you certainly cannot control how real life events unfold. And this movie is riveting. But in addition to that, the footage that is shown in this movie is mind-blowing, right? Like, you see these people at the top of buildings with no fear of death. And it really helps you to understand the limits of what human beings are capable of. There is going to be some controversy around the fact that many times these people are doing illegal things, and I know that will bother a lot of people. But I still found the movie to be something that was just like one of the most engrossing movie watching experiences I had this year. I really just wanted to know how this all wrapped up, and I think ultimately it delivers on what it promises. So, Skywalker's A Love Story. It's a great film. Check it out on Netflix.
It was originally titled Rise of the Skywalkers, right? Isn't it? Because they rise to the top of buildings.
Yeah, and they and in that movie they just repeated the same beats from previous films. It's really weird.
Previous
really
documentaries.
Weird. Yeah, previous documentaries. Really odd. Really strange. Okay, it's time for the top 5. And again, guys, out of the last 15 movies we listed, there was only 1 or 2 overlaps, Anora and The Fall Guy. Everything else was unique. Let's get to Devindra's number 5 film of 2024.
Yeah, my number 5 film is The Brutalist. I kind of knew Brady Corbett had this movie in him. He, as a director, is somebody I've been watching since I saw The Childhood of a Leader, which is a really fascinating indie film about like the potential rise of a European dictator, but as a child and the things that kind of support them there. His movie Vox Lux, I think, is one of those things that a lot of people just like hated because it's so in your face. And with The Brutalist, I think he's just like matured into a director and a writer who is like dealing with deep themes and telling them in ways that I feel like we haven't seen since like the 70s, since like Francis Ford Coppola was making good movies. This is a sweeping story about immigration and America and the power of capitalism and the power of how the American dream can destroy you in a way. But it is just so epic and sweeping and beautiful. Like, I haven't seen this film was shot in VistaVision, which is not quite IMAX, but just reading about how they do VistaVision is kind of wild because it's 35 millimeter loaded horizontally, so you get extra height but not as much width. And I also did not know that was basically the exact same as 35 millimeter, the picture format, like the photo format. So that's kind of fascinating. But you watch this movie in the theater and there's a scope to it. There's a feeling and immensity to it that I just found fascinating. Did not even really feel like how long this movie was. It's 3.5 hours long with a 15-minute intermission, but I just didn't feel like this. Just felt like an incredible story and something I hope to revisit. And that's The Brutalist.
It's a great movie. It's a great choice, Devindra. Love this choice as your number 5 film of 2024. Jeff Kanata, Your number 5 film of 2024?
My number 5 is Heretic.
Wow.
This is one of the biggest surprises of the year for me. I had no desire to see this movie, and it blew me away. Heretic somehow manages to make a TED Talk about theological philosophy, edge of your seat entertainment.
Mm-hmm.
Take that, Dawkins.
On the back of an utterly brilliant performance from Hugh Grant. This movie's talky brain games are as thrilling as any action sequence for me. And it features unlikely heroes who act in smart ways and achieve so much with so little. I'll never eat blueberry pie without thinking of this movie. I loved Heretic. It's exactly the kind of another single location, pressure cooker, talking heads movie. My catnip. Just great. Heretic. My number 5.
It's a great choice, Jeff. And I wouldn't have imagined you would pick it, but now that you said it, I'm like, that makes total sense. It's Jeff's kind of thing of people just in a room debating ideas, and also, by the way, something really scary is happening at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? Jeff's number 5 is Heretic. My number 5 film of 2024 is The Order. The Order sees Jude Law playing a grizzled FBI agent trying to take down a group of white supremacists. This movie is just one that is gorgeous film. Justin Kurzel always does a great job with shooting beautiful movies. And it is beautiful in its depiction of the Pacific Northwest, unflinching in how it tackles white supremacy. But it also has some of the most thrilling robbery sequences I've seen this year or in recent memory. There are a bunch of moments from this film that are just so well executed they gave me chills, I should say. And I think this is a movie that is just really, really relevant for our times, where you get to see kind of what white supremacy offers people, right? Why people get sort of what entrances them, what seduces them, and ultimately how difficult something like this is to stop.
Yeah.
And so, I just really appreciated the craft on display here, but also some of the themes that this movie is tackling.
You had to get your Seattle pick in there, Dave. Yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it does take place partially in Seattle. So that's The Order. One of the best looking films of the year, in my opinion. Just incredible looking movie. It's available right now on video on demand, by the way. Would strongly recommend The Order, my number 5 pick. Devindra Hardawar, your number 4 film of 2024.
Yeah, my number 4 film is Sing Sing. Yes, the other movie about using Shakespeare as a way to find yourself or find a purpose in life. I love this movie. And I think it is a tremendous starring role for Coleman Domingo.
Yes,
an actor who I've loved forever. Here he plays somebody who's been incarcerated for a long while. He thinks he shouldn't be there. He's working on getting out, but he finds community, he finds solace and meaning by performing Shakespeare with other prisoners, and they get other people from who have been in this program, like actual prisoners who've been in this program before, former felons who were also part of it, and it just feels so real, so authentic. This is a beautiful film as well. I just could not stop looking at how cinematic this thing was. Also had one of the most interesting payment schemes I've heard in movie this year. Everybody who worked on it kind of got paid the same, and the success of the movie, they would all basically partake in the success of the movie as well. So I found that kind of fascinating. This is a tremendous film. I hope more people get to see it when they can next month, right?
Yeah. My shame is that I couldn't fit this in before recording.
You'll like it, Jeff.
You'll like it. Yeah.
I did a bunch of traveling in the last couple of weeks, and I just never had an opportunity to see it. But I cannot wait to watch it. I'm very much looking forward to it.
It's a great movie, and I agree. Coleman Domingo is awesome in this movie.
Give him everything.
He should win an Oscar for this movie, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
He's really, really good in this film. So great choice, Devindra. Sing Sing, a movie I also loved quite a bit. Jeff Kanata, your number 4 film of 2024.
My number 4 film of 2024 is Ghostlight.
Nice.
Dave already spoke eloquently about how beautiful this movie is. This is a movie that spoke to me specifically in such a unique way. Spoke to both my love of theater and Shakespeare in particular, and also my experience of fatherhood, of getting older and losing contact with that artistic expression in my life. I bawled my way through this movie, and I was moved by the very raw, very real performances. It's no small thing that the father and daughter in the movie are real life father and daughter.
Yeah.
I think that that you can feel that it is part of the fabric of this movie, and I love the message it communicates. It is such a beautiful, beautiful movie, one that I adore. Ghostlight, my number 4.
Love this choice, Jeff. Yeah, the 2 movies about Shakespeare at Jeff and Devindra's number 4 slot.
Yeah.
My number 4 film of 2024 is Red Rooms. Red Rooms is
nice.
Is about the trial of a person who's been suspected of torturing people for money in a live stream on the dark web. And in addition to addressing aspects of society that I think are going to become more relevant as time goes on, like sensationalism in our justice system, true crime as a culture, and the untraceability of crypto, it's also just a really well-made thriller with memorable characters and some surprising twists and turns. The most impressive thing about Red Rooms is how the main characters' thought processes and motivations remain inscrutable through virtually the entire film. And it's one that you really need to lean in to try to understand what is actually happening, like why the main character is doing what they're doing, and ultimately one that's open to interpretation. Like I've seen people have like differing interpretations of like why they did what they did, and I think that's actually a sign of great art. But it's definitely a movie that's going to stick with me for a very, very long time, and I would recommend it. It's Red Rooms. It's available right now on video on demand. So
yeah, I loved this movie, and if you liked Fincher's stuff, if you sort of want something similar to The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, there are a lot of similarities here.
Somebody, the poster says it out Fincher's Fincher, which I'm like, I don't know if that's fair, but it is definitely definitely a lot of Fincher-esque. Like if you said David Fincher directed this, I wouldn't quite believe you because the visual style is so different than him, but plot-wise is very similar to something David Fincher would do. So if you're a fan of Fincher, I think you'll like Red Rooms. All right, guys, I really do think this has been one of the most diverse top 10s we've ever had. I have a feeling that's about to change, though. I have a feeling.
I suspect that's
my
true
guess
too.
is our top 3 are going to have a lot of overlap.
I don't know.
It's interesting.
But let's get into it. Let's get into it. Devindra Hardawar, your number 3 film of 2024.
My number 3 film is Nickel Boys.
Ooh.
This is a beautiful film by Ramel Ross, shot in a way that is so unconventional. It is fully first-person camera view, but it's not done in a way where like what was there was the Russian, like the Russia set action movie. It's not done in a way.
Hardcore Harry.
It's not hardcore Henry.
Henry.
It's not like the Doom sequence. It is just like a beautiful cinematic view, but from the first person, about 2 black boys in a reform school in Florida, and sort of the injustices that they are inflicted on there, but also the lives that one of them leads leading up into that, like the potential success he had, and also look after like what happens to people in those schools too. I have not seen a movie that looked like this. Like I honestly have never seen a movie that really encapsulated first person view in such a cinematic way. And I just found this movie incredible. It is required viewing for everybody. Certainly, this is related to a story about reform schools. It's been out there. It's not like a direct adaptation, but I think it's one of those things, like one of those like dark sides of America that we don't really talk about, but man, it's awful. But at the same time, it shows like the humanity. There's a lot of humanity in this film. There's still a lot of hopefulness in this film, and I think it's just absolutely beautiful. So check out Nickel Boys if you can.
This is a great choice, Devindra. This was almost in my top 10. Like for many iterations of my list, this was in my top 10. I think it's a wonderful film, and like you said, it's filmed in a unique style. It's one of those movies that's like, there's no other movie this year that looks like this one,
or in the past decade. Like it's really rare.
It uses first person in such a unique fashion that it is worth considering and checking out. So wonderful choice, Devindra. Love Nickel Boys as a movie, and glad it is in your top 10. Jeff Kanata, what is your number 3 film of 2024?
My number 3 film of 2024 is Dune 2.
Ooh,
excellent choice.
Good choice.
Simply the best genre film of the year.
Yeah.
It's scale and scope on a level that nothing else even approaches. It fulfilled the lofty promise of the first movie and actually makes that film better in retrospect. And it does justice to a sci-fi classic. It's a visual feast worthy of an enormous sandworm.
Well, Jeff, I'm going to put this out there. Dune Part 2, also my number 3 choice.
Hey,
synced
up.
Synergy. Kismet, yeah.
Big screen entertainment at its best, baby. I love
agree.
Dune 2.
I agree. And one of the cool things about Dune Part 2 and the two Dune films in general is Denis Villeneuve and his team took books that were basically unfilmable and figured out a way to make it comprehensible and accessible for mainstream audiences, right? Like there's so much detail in those movies about factions and science and technology and all this stuff. And he took it and summed it down to its most discrete and understandable elements. And I think that's very, very powerful. Like just the fact that he's able to achieve that. Yes, the Dune heads are going to be not happy about all the stuff that was left out. But as a movie experience, it's transcendent, it's thrilling, it's profound. And it shows that it's possible to adapt these sprawling works into something that people will still turn out in droves for. The movie made way more money, Dune Part 2, than its first iteration, which, to be fair, came out during the pandemic. But it showed like, oh, wow, that first movie generated a lot of goodwill and a lot of interest.
Also, the popcorn bucket helped.
That's right. Absolutely. Bringing it back to Jeff's story of the year.
That's right.
Great choice, Jeff. Great choice. Dune Part 2. Jeff's and my number 3 film of 2024. Coming up in the top 2, Devindra Hardawar, your number 2 film of 2024.
Sure. My number 2 film is No Other Land. This is a documentary I talked about a couple of weeks ago. It's created by a collective of Israeli and Palestinian activists who are tracking the displacement of people in Masafar Yatta, which is a village in the West Bank. Over time, this is something like the Israeli military has basically been crushing homes and schools and other buildings and taking it over as military land, leaving people displaced with no place to go. Some people end up living in caves. Some people just have to rebuild their homes and it'll get destroyed again and they keep going. And they do this because they have no other place to be. And this film kind of traces one activist who has been dealing with this since he was a child. His own father was a bit of an activist as well. He makes friends with an Israeli journalist who co-directed, co-wrote this movie as well. And it's about their relationship, but it's also about what is happening in this village and the sort of like, I don't know, the inherent injustice happening there. It's a tremendous documentary. It's infuriating. It's also something that likely will never get distribution in the US at this rate. So I hope people can get to see it somehow. It has played in some film festivals. It played for like a week at Lincoln Center in New York. And hopefully, you'll be able to see it online at least. And that's No Other Land.
I did see this movie, and I agree with you. It is a tremendous piece of filmmaking. We'll see if it gets distribution.
Yeah.
And
it's one of those miracle movies. Like I'm shocked this movie was even allowed to be made or able to be made. Yeah.
No Other Land. It's Devindra's number 2 film of 2024. Jeff Kanata, your number 2 film of 2024.
My number 2 is Anora.
Ooh.
I struggled with whether this would be my number 1 movie. I really went back and forth. This for a long time was my number 1 movie.
Jeff, now I'm worried my number 2 is your number 1. That's what
I'm also worried about that.
Yeah. We'll find out. We'll find out momentarily.
I don't understand how this movie can even be made. The energy that it exudes in every frame. The process of making this, I just don't even understand how you approach the momentum of this movie. To think that this movie was made over the course of months, where you shoot little bits of it, and yet that momentum carries forward from shot to shot to moment to moment. It also feels like 2 movies smushed together, and both are thrilling. A fairy tale and then this sort of wry comedy. I love how funny this movie is, and it's raw and real and larger than life all at once. and it speaks to our modern era in very powerful ways. It's not really like any other movie I saw this year. I loved Anora, and part of the reason that I almost put it at number one is that I ended up writing a limerick for this movie for a completely different purpose as part of the promotion for my limerick book that's coming soon. And it's one of my favorite ones. It might be my favorite limerick I've ever written. And I'd like to read it for you guys.
Okay.
Play it again, Sam.
This might be I never heard this one before.
Yeah, okay.
This is because we didn't review. This wasn't on a main review movie, so I didn't write a limerick for it. But I wrote it.
Right. Yeah,
just recently. So this might be one of my favorite limericks I've ever done. The tale of a big dreaming stripper who encounters a Russian big tipper. Don't fall for that fella, New York Cinderella. He'll give you the slip, not the slipper.
Ooh,
beautiful, Jeff.
Well done.
Beautifully done.
Yes.
Love that.
Thank you. I'm proud of that one.
Yeah. That was good.
Anyway, I loved Anora, and like I said, it almost made my number one. It's awesome, and it's hard to recommend this for everybody because it's a very R-rated.
Yeah,
man, it's fun.
Great choice for Jeff's number two. It's Anora. Just hit video on demand, by the way. You can check it out now. All right. I apologize in advance if I steal some of your thunder, Jeff. But I'm pretty sure my number two is your number one.
Oh boy.
We'll see. This will be a sign of how well I know Jeff Kanata, right? But there is one movie that I think hasn't shown up on your list yet, and I would be shocked if it didn't. But my number two film of 2024 is Challengers. Challengers probably had my favorite script out of any movie released this year. It's the story about the lives of three tennis players and their entangled relationship over the course of many years that has an incredible way of revealing information to you. Like every scene feels essential in revealing something and recontextualizing everything that came before. All three actors are obviously incredibly talented, but they're also at various stages of becoming megastars in real life, which mirrors some of the actual dynamics in the film itself. And the conclusion of the movie is one that is delightfully open to interpretation. I had a blast with this movie. It's an example of actors, director, and screenwriter all bringing their A game in something that becomes more than the sum of its parts. So that is why Challengers is my number two film of 2024. All right, folks, we've arrived at it.
Here we are, number ones.
Our number one movie of 2024, the movie that defined the year for us. Let's get into it. Devindra Hardawar, your number one film of 2024.
I can assure you there will be no overlap. My number one film is I Saw the TV Glow.
Whoa!
And I think this is a movie that was tremendous when I first saw it. I think the lasting impact of this film will be huge. This is a film about a teenager trying to like make sense of like what a TV show meant to him and how much he related to it when he was younger, and also like how much it relates to him when he's older. It's a movie about our relationship with pop culture and kind of how that changes over time, but also it's very much a story about like somebody sort of repressing their own identity and trans identity in particular. And I think right now is a really dangerous time for trans people, and it's kind of discussing what is happening politically everywhere. And I'm really worried for my trans friends right now. And I think this is just like a tremendous film that will really help people at least understand like part of the struggle, or part of like what people go through when they're dealing with gender issues. So I love this film. Thought it's incredibly well made. Jane Schoenbrunn is I really liked the last film they made. I think that was their first film. It was we were all at the World's Fair. That was more about like online things, but this one
we are all going to the World's Fair.
We are all going to the World's Fair. Yeah. This one is very much about how I relate to pop culture, or how a lot of us have. If you've watched Buffy, or if you got really into a TV show at a young age and it kind of meant a lot to you. It's about the downsides of fandom It's about how that can go dark as well. It's also about self-discovery in really beautiful and meaningful ways. Incredible performance by Justice Smith as well. Like, this is an actor, I've seen him as a kid in many things, but here, like, he is so raw and open and vulnerable. I cannot stop thinking about this movie. I think it's definitely the best movie of the year for me, and I do hope it is something that more people get to see, and it opens up their eyes in more ways than one.
Wow. Love this choice, Devindra. Obviously a movie that has a lot to say and does so beautifully. Great choice for your number one film of 2024. I Saw the TV Glove. Jeff Kanata. We're going to find out whether or not I was right. What was your number one pick for 2024?
My number one movie of 2024 is Juror Number 2.
What?
No, I'm kidding. It's Challengers.
Woo!
It's Challengers.
Yes.
It's Challengers. You nailed it. I love this movie. I mean, all the things that you said, Dave, but also because it's about what it takes to be great.
Mm-hmm.
The pursuit of greatness, the sacrifices required, and the types of people that are drawn to that pursuit. It's an epic three-hander with awesome performances that span decades of narrative time, which unfold in this masterful back and forth tempo, not unlike tennis. It's a sports movie and a relationship movie and a meditation on self-discipline and art. It's awesome. I adore the ending. Challengers is my favorite film of 2024.
What a picture. What a picture. Yeah. And Jeff, as usual, you and I are simpatico. We had I think did we both choose Anatomy of a Fall as our number one last year?
We did,
think, right?
yeah.
So we have again like very, very close choices. But I was thinking to myself, there's no way Challengers is not on Jeff Kanata's top 10, right? And so that's why I'm like,
I love this movie so much.
Yeah, it's a great
so
film.
Good. I hope it gets nominated for a bunch of stuff. I worry that it was released too early in the year for that. But also, I will say, Zendaya representing hard on my list. Movies 1 and 3 have Zendaya performances on my list. But yeah, she's awesome. Everybody in this movie is awesome.
Shout out to the visual effects of Challengers, by the way, where you are. There's a first person perspective of you are the tennis ball.
Incredible.
At various points in the movie, it's incredible to see that.
Let's see, the undercourt shot was the thing that really just got me. Like, you guys don't watch a lot of. Jeff, I know you have started watching anime, but the thing I love about Challengers is that Luca Guadagnino went full on sports anime.
Yeah.
And that includes the weird hyperkinetic editing, includes that soundtrack too. One of the best soundtracks of the year.
Yes.
So, yeah. It kills me I couldn't fit this in my top 10 as well.
All right. My number one film of 2024 is The Brutalist.
Wow.
Yeah. The Brutalist takes place decades in the past when a refugee architect comes to the United States trying to build a life for himself and his family. It's a movie about the American immigrant experience, its joys and its contradictions and its terrors. It's also about how art can be one of the final safe spaces for those that are seeking life somewhere else and trying to escape. I think it's a masterpiece. I think it really captures some core part of what it means to be an immigrant. And when you have a party in power right now who ran on a platform of mass deportation now, that is like part of their platform, I think it is something that is more relevant than ever. This movie is a masterpiece, and I really can't wait to talk about it more once it's in theaters more broadly. But Adrian Brody is amazing in this film. And he
really is.
He does a great job of capturing people who have been through some shit, right? Between the pianist and this movie, in both movies he's played a character who's trying to escape the horrors of World War II, and I think in this film it really does speak to something essential about what it means to be in America. And also what it means to try to create art despite all the horrors that's going on around you. So,
and the art that is created in the film too, like breathtaking. You know,
I think a big part of you enjoying the film or appreciating the film is your affection for brutalism as a style.
I'm not the biggest fan of brutalist architecture, but the things he, especially within like, there's a library that's created and just incredible stuff. Just beautiful stuff. You see the vision, you see the talent here, and kind of what a capitalist monster would want to take advantage of.
Yeah. So it's about immigration, it's about capitalism, it's about all the stuff that shapes our lives today in America. Tremendous movie. It's my number one film of 2024.
I can't wait to talk about this movie more. We're going to have this be a main review in the new year.
Yeah, or an after dark, one of those.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, whatever the case, I'm excited
it will
to dig
be
into
a detailed conversation at some point. So that's our top 10 list. Wow, what I'm going to argue probably this is the widest variety we've seen in our top 10s in a long time.
Certainly up there.
Yeah, there's some overlap, but
not a Marvel movie to be had. No superhero movie.
Yeah, no Deadpool and Wolverine on here.
No,
right?
Although very fun movie
movie. Yeah,
worthy of remembering at the end of the year for sure.
If I were to rate like most fun I've had in a theater, like that's one of those.
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of fun, that movie. I mean, we have a lot more to say about the movies of this year that will come out in next week's episode of, honorable mentions and movies we didn't get and they didn't get and so on. So be sure to stay tuned for all that. But it was a great year for movies. And I just want to say a big thank you to all the people that make this podcast possible. First of all, our patrons who fund everything. Patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes, early access episodes, and exclusive After Dark episodes. But also, it takes a team to put out all the stuff that we put out each week on social media as well as on the main feed. I want to give a big shout out to Noah Ross, who edits every episode of the podcast. I want to give a shout out to Kurt Mega and John Barry, who do the video stuff. And also to Elizabeth, who helps to post about the videos on social media. All of you folks help to make this podcast possible. And I want to give a big thank you to everyone who has worked on this show in some capacity or another. Of course, also to Tim McEwen, who wrote the theme song that we play every week. Check out his band, The Midnight. But anyway, that's the year in 2024 movies.
Hard to imagine we're still doing this.
Indeed.
Guys, incredible.
Yeah. So
privilege. It's a privilege.
It's a privilege. Absolutely. Absolutely it is. And so we hope you've enjoyed going through the year of 2024 with us right here on the Filmcast. And I think that's going to be it for the top 10 movies of 2024. What a year of movies. Again, I just when I come away from this year, it's with just gratitude that we were able to get so many wonderful films, and
so many wonderful popcorn buckets.
So true. Thank you so much for watching this video of the Filmcast. Check out these other videos that we have available, and be sure to hit like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon to get other videos from us in the future.
You can also go to thefilmcast.com to catch all of our audio podcast versions of all of our episodes.
And support this podcast at patreon.com/filmpodcast, where you can sign up for ad-free episodes and exclusive After Darks.
Thanks so much to everyone who makes the Filmcast possible.